Good afternoon, dear friends and colleagues. Yes, the agenda of this masterclass is set for us. We are being asked, why do we need women to have a larger role in innovation? And my immediate and simple reply to this question is, the world cannot afford to have over half of its population not contributing to decision-making, innovation, and to the economy. Even more so now, when we are in the midst of, one could say, a double crisis, with the pandemic and the war in Ukraine and other wars across the globe, unfortunately. Various research papers have been written and stating over and over again that there is an economic cost to gender inequality and inequity. We all know that women constitute over half of the world's population. The lack of women participating in the world's economy is resulting in the loss of half of the world's talent, human capital, participation, and contribution. We have been told by the World Economic Forum quite recently that it will take another 170 years to reach gender parity if we continue to be complacent. That would mean that it would take us nearly 2 centuries to ensure the maximization of the potential of the world economy. Knowing all this, and yet very little is being done to shift the situation across the board, I'm afraid that the situation is quite the same in the tourism industry, and therefore there's a lot of work that we need to do. The annual report of the International Monetary Fund clearly states that women's economic participation is, and I quote, a part of the growth and stability equation. A McKinsey study among 366 public companies from different countries found that those companies which were ethnically and gender diverse performed significantly better than others. So even research, scientific research on models that we have prove that women's participation is so essential for our way forward. This can be easily understood. People coming from diverse backgrounds, having different experiences and outlooks, bring with them rich and diverse knowledge, innovative ideas, solutions, and much potential to the table. The same can be said of the complementary expertise that women and men can bring together to the table. Adopting more collaborative working styles of leadership is also vital to drive major improvements and achieve better results and outcomes. I believe that women leaders tend to appreciate teamwork, shared vision and goals, and focus more on innovation. I also believe that women provide further support and inspiration in exchange for high expectations of outcomes. In my opinion, women also have high expectations of themselves and value integrity and ethical behavior. And this is from experience now, this is not just from books. So with women at the helm, utilizing their own style of leadership, innovative experiences can be shared and taken on board. Much research has been carried out on the outcomes of diversity in any decision-making setting. Research is showing us that women bring to the table a broader perspective and innovative creativity, and a pool of untapped talents and competence, including deeper skills for conflict resolution, more open to empathy and attention to people's needs. A study commissioned by Forbes in 2017 found that inclusive teams make better business decisions by up to 87%. Unfortunately, efforts to increase women in higher positions across organizations have often been more a matter of political tokenism rather than serious management initiatives. We are aware that in traditionally male-dominated fields, women are heavily underrepresented, especially in science, technology, and innovation. This situation needs to change, not only to achieve justice and fairness, but more importantly, to bring in new innovative ideas and improve the overall performance. This should also be the case for the tourism industry. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, and I quote, tourism has a pivotal role to play in achieving the objectives at the heart of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, in particular, the commitments to gender equality and the empowerment of women as expressed in Sustainable Development Goal 5. Allow me to remind you that Sustainable Development Goal 5 specifically aims to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. On the other hand, Goal 8, Target 9 of the UN Agenda 2030 states clearly that by 2030, we need to devise and implement policies to promote sustainable tourism that creates jobs and promote local culture and products. Surely we cannot reach such a clear target without the participation of women in the tourism industry at all levels. And therefore, we really know what should be done. We have a clear guideline. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. The United Nations World Tourism Organization also states that, and again I quote, in most regions of the world, women make up the majority of the tourism workforce. Women tend to be concentrated in the lowest paid and lowest status jobs in tourism. Women perform a large amount of unpaid work in family tourism businesses, unquote. The UNWTO, in its global report on women in tourism, laid out an action plan to empower and take forward the effective contribution of women in the tourism sector. The action plan proposed by UNWTO gives importance to leadership, policy, and decision-making by women and advocates towards gender balance in senior management positions within the tourism companies. Furthermore, it emphasizes the need to address the lack of high-level leadership by women in decision-making in the private sector, public sector tourism bodies, and agencies. However, I personally would like to see women go further than this. I think the time is ripe for women to be at the center of the quiet revolution happening in the world, including in the tourism industry. We have all adapted to new methods of working and delivering as a result of the pandemic. What we passed through and achieved during the pandemic is truly a result of our incessant search for innovative solutions to the global harsh reality we faced. During this emergency, women were at the center of all this, from women political leaders to women leading health services, to women scientists searching and researching for vaccines. Women were shoulder to shoulder in such unprecedented difficult circumstances with men. We all appreciate that gender equality and women's empowerment are fundamental to just, equitable, inclusive, and prosperous societies. Likewise, I believe that women can be innovators in whichever area they choose to be. According to the Oslo Guide, innovation is the implementation of a new or significantly improved product, goods, or services or process. It is also a new marketing method or a new organizational method in business practices, workplace organization, or external relations. Innovation thus is an investment in socio-economic benefits. Innovation can also be defined as the process of bringing any new problem-solving idea that reaches the stages of implementation and commercialization into use. The United Nations World Tourism Organization states, and again I quote, "Fostering a successful tourism innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem requires connecting all stakeholders to collaborative opportunities and prioritizing capacity building in tourism and technology." In my opinion, within the tourism industry, innovation can take place in a number of ways, and indeed, success also lies when in close collaboration with different institutions and entities. Leaders in tourism need to advocate with governments, authorities, and policymakers for the right enabling policies that foster innovation, infrastructure, trade, the adoption of new technologies, and inclusive collaborations, among others. Leaders in tourism need to build collaboration with researchers in order to create frameworks and models of sustainable innovation in tourism, smart destinations and hospitality, create innovative solutions in tourism that support the Sustainable Development Goals and contribute to knowledge in general. Lastly, leaders in tourism need to encourage and, where necessary, empower the private sector to develop new technologies for tourism, invest in open innovation in sustainable projects related to tourism and technology, and raise awareness about innovation while implementing a structure and vision for the use of technology in the sector. I see these as opportunities where women can effectively contribute by joining the leadership in the industry. A significant challenge faced by the tourism and hospitality industry in a rapidly changing world is the ability to sustain organizational growth. Some of the main strategies for achieving organizational growth are those related to innovation, internationalization, and networking. According to Danilla and Tosland, the gender composition of team members within companies is also an important factor in understanding innovation, with companies with a balanced workforce are twice as likely to innovate. Women too, as much as men, have the necessary skills in achieving such a connection. On the other hand, I feel that before I end my contribution to this masterclass, I need to draw the attention to a dark side of the tourism industry, and where women are used as objects rather than valued contributors to the sector. A side which shames all genuine attempts to encourage and empower women to the industry. A long-standing, prevailing situation is where, unfortunately, women are not acknowledged as leaders in the sector, but where still are made victims of the industry. I'm here referring to the sex industry in tourism, with millions of women and children being trafficked every year. We cannot close our eyes as if this is not happening. I encourage women and men leaders in the tourism industry to challenge the status quo and become innovators here too, to prevent such crimes against the objectification of women and children. I call on all stakeholders, including all men and women, to work for the elimination of sexual exploitation of women and girls in the tourism industry. We need to call for legal reform that will protect women and girls from sexual exploitation and end impunity for perpetrators. I also want to mention the sexual exploitation of children and their disappearance as a result. I must emphasize that this horrendous phenomenon is not unknown to this part of the world. I must highlight that 1/3 of all migrants coming from Africa to this part of the world are children, and as Europol has flagged, 10,000 migrant children go missing on European soil without a trace. This is more than enough to make us all feel responsible, to immediately put our heads together to act. While the exploitation of children for sex is a criminal act in most countries, this industry is believed to involve as many as 2 million children around the world, often resulting in child trafficking on an immense scale. I must also acknowledge the work of the International Organization on Sexual Exploitation of Children in Travel and Tourism, which is composed of members of the tourism industry and children's rights experts that work to eradicate the practice of child sex tourism. However, more needs to be done. The status quo has lasted for too long. Yes, we need to be innovative. We need innovative ways to address sex tourism, and I believe that women can be innovators in these areas of tourism as well. I'm certain that with more women leaders in tourism, this scourge would be addressed more concretely and with more positive results. We must stand tall on this and work to address the challenge of the objectification of women in the sector. We must stand together to safeguard all children from the scourge and horrendous, traumatic experience of becoming sex tools in the industry. I will end my contribution by quoting McKinsey once again. $12 trillion can be added to the global GDP by 2025 if we advance women's equality. So what is the tourism industry waiting for? Let us build an environment in the tourism industry where women can develop their full potential, be creative, and explore their options without any hindrance or barriers. Ultimately, it is the industry itself that will flourish economically and sustainably for all. Thank you.